Sarah Mitchell walked into Murphy's diner with her head held high, though her heart was heavy. The small Virginia town of Riverside looked peaceful in the morning light, nothing like the places she'd seen overseas. She chose a booth by the window and ordered coffee, black. The diner was filled with the usual morning crowd, retired folks catching up on gossip, young mothers with strollers, a few construction workers grabbing breakfast before their shift. Sarah kept to herself, as she always did these days. New in town, the waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, set down the coffee cup. "Yes, ma'am. Just moved into the rental on Oak Street." "Well, welcome to Riverside. I'm Betty. You let me know if you need anything." Sarah smiled, grateful for the warmth. She'd learned that small towns could go either way. They could embrace you or shut you out. She hoped for the former, but she was prepared for the latter. As she sipped her coffee, 3 men walked in and took seats at the counter. They wore matching jackets with military insignia, the local veterans club. Sarah recognized the type immediately. Good men, mostly, proud of their service, but sometimes they could be territorial. The oldest of the group, a large man with a gray beard, noticed Sarah looking their way. He nodded politely, and she nodded back. "That's Tom Henderson," Betty said quietly as she refilled Sarah's cup. "Runs the Veterans Club, served in Desert Storm. The other 2 are his buddies, Pete and Jackson. They're here every morning like clockwork." Sarah thanked her and went back to her coffee. She wasn't looking for attention. She just wanted to start over, find some peace after everything that had happened. But peace, she was learning, wasn't always easy to find. The next day, Sarah stopped by the local grocery store. She was in the cereal aisle when she heard a commotion near the entrance. A young man, maybe 19 or 20, was arguing with the store manager. "I told you I can pay next week," the young man said, his face flushed with embarrassment. "My mom's disability check was late and—" "I'm sorry, Marcus, but I can't keep extending credit," the manager said, not unkindly. "It's store policy." Sarah watched as Marcus's shoulders slumped. He set down the basket of groceries, basic stuff, nothing fancy. Bread, milk, peanut butter, canned soup. The food a family needed to get by. Without thinking too hard about it, Sarah walked to the front. "I'll cover it," she said. Both men turned to look at her. "Ma'am, you don't have to," Marcus started. "I know I don't have to, but I'm going to." Sarah handed her card to the manager. "Add his groceries to my bill." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. Thank you so much. I promise I'll pay you back." "Don't worry about it," Sarah said. "Just help someone else when you can." As Marcus left with his groceries, the manager studied Sarah with new interest. "That was real kind of you, miss." "Mitchell, Sarah Mitchell." "Well, Miss Mitchell, that boy's had it tough. His dad died overseas a few years back. His mom never really recovered. You did a good thing today." Sarah just nodded. She understood loss. She understood what it meant when a soldier didn't come home. By the end of her first week in Riverside, Sarah had settled into a routine. Morning coffee at Murphy's diner, a run through the park. Evenings spent fixing up her rental house, which needed more work than the landlord had admitted. She was painting the living room when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Is this Sarah Mitchell?" A man's voice, official sounding. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Robert Chen. I'm a reporter with the Washington Herald. I'm doing a story about Navy SEALs, specifically about the first women to complete Bud S training. Your name came up in my research." Sarah's hand tightened on the phone. "I don't do interviews." "I understand you've kept a low profile since your discharge, but I think people should know." "I said no." Sarah hung up. Her hands were shaking. She set the phone down and took a deep breath. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. She'd moved to Riverside to escape her past, not to rehash it for a newspaper article. That weekend, Sarah decided to visit the local Veterans Center. She'd seen the sign for their Saturday morning coffee social, and she thought it might be good to meet some people, to feel less alone. The center was a modest building near the town square. Inside, about 20 people were gathered, mostly older men, a few women. Tom Henderson stood near the coffee table, holding court with a group of veterans. Sarah poured herself a cup and found a seat in the back. She listened as the veterans traded stories, laughed at old jokes, and discussed the upcoming Memorial Day parade. "Excuse me," Tom Henderson's voice rang out. "Looks like we have a newcomer. Don't be shy, miss. Come introduce yourself." All eyes turned to Sarah. She stood, feeling suddenly exposed. "Hi, I'm Sarah Mitchell. I just moved to town." "Welcome, Sarah," Tom said warmly. "Are you a veteran yourself?" She hesitated. This was the moment she'd been dreading. "Yes, Navy." "Outstanding. What you do in the Navy?" The room waited for her answer. Sarah felt the weight of their expectations, their curiosity. She knew what would happen if she told the truth. She'd seen it before. "I was a medic," she said, which wasn't entirely a lie. She'd received medical training like all SEALs. Tom nodded, satisfied. "Well, we're glad to have you. Navy medics do important work." Sarah sat back down, relief washing over her. She dodged the question, at least for now. The trouble started 2 weeks later, on a humid Tuesday afternoon. Sarah was at the hardware store, picking up supplies for her bathroom renovation, when she overheard a conversation in the next aisle. "Did you see that article in the Herald?" a man's voice said. "About some woman claiming she was a Navy SEAL." Sarah froze, her hand halfway to a package of sandpaper. "Yeah, I saw it," another voice responded. "Load of garbage if you ask me. Women can't be SEALs, it's too tough." The article said she completed Bud-S training, said she served on missions overseas. But get this, she got discharged early, something about a classified incident. Probably couldn't hack it and made up some story to save face. Sarah's jaw clenched. She wanted to walk away, but her feet wouldn't move. Says she's living somewhere in Virginia now, trying to stay under the radar. Sarah Mitchell, her name is. Well, if she shows up around here, someone should set her straight. Stolen valor is a serious thing. My cousin served in the teams, and he'd be furious to hear about some woman pretending she did what he did. Sarah carefully set down the sandpaper and left the store without buying anything. Her heart was pounding, and her throat felt tight. The article had run. The reporter had published it anyway, despite her refusal to participate. She drove home in a daze. Inside her house, she opened her laptop and searched for the article. There it was, front page of the Herald's website. Breaking Barriers, the untold story of the Navy's first female SEAL, and why she disappeared. The article was detailed, too detailed. It mentioned her training, her deployment, even her unit number. It stopped short of revealing her current location, but it wouldn't take much for someone to connect the dots. The reporter had included quotes from unnamed sources, some supportive, others skeptical. And then came the comments section, hundreds of them. Fake news. No way a woman could pass SEAL training. This is what's wrong with the military today. Stolen valor. She should be prosecuted. There were some supportive comments too, but they were drowned out by the vitriol. Sarah closed the laptop, feeling sick. The next morning, she went to Murphy's diner as usual, hopping for normalcy. But the moment she walked in, the atmosphere changed. Conversations stopped. People stared. Betty approached her table with the coffee pot, but her warm smile was gone. "Sarah, is it true? What they're saying online?" "What are they saying?" "That you're claiming to be a Navy SEAL. That you're lying about your service." Sarah's heart sank. "Betty, Because if it's true, if you're lying, that's a terrible thing to do. My nephew died serving this country. Stolen valor isn't something we take lightly around here." "I'm not lying," Sarah said quietly. "Everything in that article is true." Betty studied her for a long moment, then walked away without pouring the coffee. Sarah sat there for a few minutes, feeling the weight of every stare, every whispered conversation. Then she stood and left. Over the next few days, things got worse. Someone spray-painted "fake" on her mailbox. She received angry messages on social media from people she'd never met, at the grocery store. the same store where she'd helped Marcus. People avoided her in the aisles. Tom Henderson and his Veterans Club released a statement to the local newspaper, saying they didn't believe women could serve in SEAL teams and suggesting that Sarah was either confused about her service record or deliberately lying. They called it an insult to real veterans. Sarah tried to ignore it. She kept her head down, focused on fixing up her house, and avoided going out unless necessary. But the isolation was wearing on her. She'd left the military to escape the memories, the trauma of that last mission. She'd come to Riverside hoping for a fresh start. Instead, she'd found a different kind of war. One evening, as she was sitting on her porch, Marcus appeared at the end of her driveway. He approached cautiously. "Miss Mitchell, I just wanted to say, I don't care what people are saying. You helped me when you didn't have to. That tells me what kind of person you are." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you, Marcus. My dad always said you can tell a lot about someone by what they do when nobody's watching. You're a good person, and for what it's worth, I believe you." After Marcus left, Sarah allowed herself to cry, just for a few minutes. Then she wiped her eyes and went inside. She wasn't going to run again, not this time. The breaking point came on Saturday morning. Sarah went to the Veterans Center for their coffee social, knowing it was probably a mistake, but refusing to hide anymore. The moment she walked in, the room went silent. Tom Henderson stood up, his face hard. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "This is a public facility," Sarah said calmly. "I'm a veteran, I have every right to be here." "You're a liar," Tom said, "and we don't welcome liars." "I'm not lying." "Really? Then prove it. Show us your DD-214. Show us your SEAL Trident. Show us any evidence that you're who you claim to be." Sarah's service records were classified, part of the agreement when she'd left the Navy. She couldn't show them her discharge papers without violating federal law. And her SEAL Trident, the pin that symbolized her completion of training, was in a box under her bed because wearing it in public had caused too many problems. "I can't," she said. "My records are classified." Tom laughed and others joined in. "Of course they are, how convenient." "You need to understand." "No, you need to understand," Tom interrupted. "Real veterans don't hide behind excuses. Real veterans honor their service. What you're doing is disgraceful." An older woman in the back spoke up. "My husband was a SEAL. He died in Afghanistan, and you're spitting on his memory with your lies." Sarah felt like she'd been punched in the gut. These people, they had no idea what she'd sacrificed, what she'd endured. But she couldn't tell them, couldn't defend herself without breaking her oath. "I'm sorry for your loss," Sarah said to the woman. "But I'm not lying. I know you don't believe me and I understand why. But I served. I earned my place, and nothing you say can take that away from me." She turned and walked out, knowing she'd made things worse. Behind her, she heard Tom's voice. "If she comes back, call the police. We don't need her kind here." Part 3, The Spiral. Sarah stopped going out except for absolute necessities. She ordered groceries online. She skipped her morning runs. She painted her house room by room, finding solace in the physical work. But Riverside wouldn't let her hide. Someone posted her address online, along with a call to make the fake SEAL feel unwelcome. Her mailbox was knocked over. Eggs were thrown at her windows. Late at night, trucks would drive by slowly, their occupants shouting insults. The police were no help. When she called to report the vandalism, the officer who responded was polite but dismissive. "Ma'am, people are upset. If you just admit you made a mistake about your service, all this would go away." "I didn't make a mistake." "Then show proof." "I can't, it's classified." The officer sighed. "Then I'm not sure what you expect me to do." Sarah felt herself sinking into a dark place. The isolation, the constant attacks, the inability to defend herself, it was all too familiar. It reminded her of those final days in the military when everything had fallen apart. She'd been part of a classified operation, a rescue mission that had gone horribly wrong. Her team had been ambushed. She'd fought like hell, had dragged 2 wounded teammates to safety under heavy fire, but 3 others hadn't made it. including the team leader, Lieutenant Commander James Rourke. The Navy had buried the mission under layers of classification. The surviving team members had been scattered to different units or quietly discharged. Sarah had been told that her service would never be publicly acknowledged, that she'd have to carry the truth alone. She'd accepted that at the time, grateful to be alive, willing to bear the burden. But now, living in Riverside, being called a liar every day, it was breaking her in ways combat never had. One night, Sarah sat on her living room floor with a bottle of whiskey and a loaded pistol. Not because she wanted to use it, just because holding it made her feel less helpless. She'd reached the point where she understood why so many veterans chose to end their pain. Her phone rang. She ignored it. It rang again and again. Finally, she answered. "What?" "Sarah Mitchell," a woman's voice, professional but kind. "Who is this?" "My name is Dr. Jennifer Oakes. I'm a therapist who specializes in working with veterans, particularly those dealing with PTSD and classified service issues. A colleague of yours gave me your number." "I don't have any colleagues." "Yes, you do. They just can't reach out directly. But they're worried about you. They've been reading the news. They know what you're going through." Sarah's hand tightened on the phone. "Who contacted you?" "I can't say, but I want you to know that you're not alone, and I want to help if you'll let me." Sarah looked at the gun on the floor, then at the whiskey bottle. "I don't know if anyone can help." "Let me try, please, just one session. If it doesn't help, you never have to call me again." Something in the woman's voice, a genuine warmth, a lack of judgment, made Sarah agree. They set up a video call for the next morning. Dr. Oakes turned out to be exactly what Sarah needed. She didn't push for details about classified missions. She didn't question Sarah's service. She just listened, offered coping strategies, and reminded Sarah that her worth wasn't determined by whether Riverside believed her. "You know the truth," Dr. Oakes said during their second session. "That has to be enough." "But it's not," Sarah admitted. "I thought I could live with it, but I can't. Every day, people look at me like I'm trash, like I'm insulting real veterans, and I can't defend myself." "Have you considered leaving, finding somewhere else to start over?" "I'm tired of running. I ran from the military. I ran from my old life. If I run from Riverside too, where does it end? At some point, I have to stand my ground." Dr. Oakes smiled. "That sounds like the fighter I've heard about." The sessions helped, but they couldn't change Sarah's reality. Riverside had made up its mind about her. She was the fake SEAL, the stolen Valor case, the woman who'd insulted every real veteran. And then, 3 weeks after the article was published, something unexpected happened. Sarah was at the post office, mailing a package, when a man in a Navy uniform walked in. He was young, maybe late 20s, with the bearing of someone who took his service seriously. He approached the counter, conducted his business, and turned to leave. As he passed Sarah, he stopped, looked at her closely. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you Sarah Mitchell?" Sarah tensed. "Here we go again." "Yes." "I thought so. I recognized you from the article." He extended his hand. "I just want to say thank you." Sarah stared at him, confused. "Thank you for what?" "For serving, for breaking barriers, for making it possible for my sister to even think about trying out for Bud S." His eyes were sincere. "I don't care what anyone in this town says. I know the teams. I know how hard it is. If you made it through, you earned it." Sarah shook his hand, too stunned to speak. "Don't let them break you," the young sailor said. "You're a hero, whether they know it or not." He left before Sarah could respond. She stood there in the post office, tears streaming down her face, feeling something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. That evening, Sarah made a decision. She couldn't prove her service to Riverside, not without violating her oath. But she could live her truth. She could stop hiding. She dug out her sealed trident from the box under her bed. She pinned it to her jacket. And the next morning, she wore it to Murphy's diner. The reaction was immediate. People stared. Whispered. Betty refused to serve her. Tom Henderson, who was at his usual spot at the counter, stood up and walked over. "How dare you wear that?" "I earned it," Sarah said calmly. You're a disgrace. Wearing that pin is an insult to every man who ever served in the teams. Then report me, Sarah said. Call the Navy. Tell them I'm wearing a SEAL trident I didn't earn. See what they say. Tom's face went red. Maybe I will. Please do. Sarah drank her coffee, her heart pounding, while Tom stood there fuming. Finally, he stormed out, his friends following. Sarah knew she'd just made the situation worse, but she was done apologizing for telling the truth. The Memorial Day parade was a big deal in Riverside. The whole town came out to honor veterans, with marching bands, floats, and a ceremony at the town square. Sarah had no intention of going, but Marcus called her the night before. Miss Mitchell, you should be in the parade. You're a veteran. Marcus, that's not a good idea. Why not? Because people are being idiots. That's exactly why you should go. Show them you're not afraid. Sarah appreciated his support, but she knew better. I'll think about it. She didn't go. Instead, she spent Memorial Day working in her garden, trying not to think about all the fallen teammates she was honoring in her own way. The ones whose names she couldn't speak. The missions she couldn't acknowledge. Around noon, she heard shouting from the street. She looked up to see a group of people gathered near her mailbox. Tom Henderson was at the center, holding something. Sarah walked down her driveway. What's going on? Tom held up a piece of paper. This is what's going on. I called the Navy like you said, asked them about you, and guess what? They said they have no record of a Sarah Mitchell serving in the SEAL teams. Sarah's blood ran cold. That's not. You're a fraud, Tom shouted. I knew it, the Navy confirmed it. A crowd was gathering now, parade goers who'd heard the commotion. Sarah saw Betty, Marcus, and dozens of other Riverside residents. Phones were out, recording. Tom, you don't understand. My service is classified. They're not going to confirm it over the phone. Classified, Tom mocked. That's always your excuse. Well, I'm done listening to excuses. You've disrespected this town long enough. He reached for Sarah's jacket, trying to rip off her SEAL trident. Sarah caught his wrist, her training kicking in automatically. She could have broken his arm with minimal effort. Instead, she just held him firm. Don't touch me, she said quietly. Let go of him, one of Tom's friends shouted. The crowd pressed closer. Sarah felt panic rising, not fear of the people, but fear of what she might do if they pushed her too far. She'd been trained to respond to threats, trained to fight, and right now her body was screaming at her to defend herself. Everyone stepped back, a new voice commanded. The crowd parted. A man in a Navy dress uniform walked through, his chest covered in ribbons and medals. He was in his 50s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The rank on his shoulder indicated he was a commander. I'm Commander William Barrett, he said, his voice carrying authority. Someone want to tell me what's happening here? Tom pulled free from Sarah's grip. This woman is pretending to be a Navy SEAL. She's wearing a trident she didn't earn. I called your people, and they confirmed she's not in your records. Commander Barrett turned to Sarah. His eyes swept over her, taking in her stance, her bearing, the way she held herself. Then his gaze fixed on the SEAL trident pinned to her jacket. What's your name? He asked. Sarah Mitchell, sir. Something flickered across the commander's face. Recognition, surprise, Sarah couldn't tell. Sarah Mitchell, he repeated slowly. Service number. Sarah rattled it off without hesitation. Buddhist class. She told him. Where did you do your dive training? Coronado, sir. The commander nodded slowly. What was the nickname for the obstacle course? This was a trick question. Every SEAL class had their own nickname for it. Sarah gave him the name her class had used, something that would never appear in any official record. Commander Barrett was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone present. He saluted her. Sarah automatically returned the salute, muscle memory from years of service. Stand at ease, Mitchell, the commander said. Then he turned to the crowd. This woman is exactly who she says she is. She's a Navy SEAL. She earned that trident. And anyone who says otherwise is wrong. Tom sputtered, but the Navy said. The Navy said what they're required to say about classified personnel, Commander Barrett interrupted. Her service record is sealed. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Who are you? Betty asked. How do we know you're really a commander? Commander Barrett pulled out his military ID and held it up. Commander William Barrett, Naval Special Warfare Command. I'm in Riverside visiting my sister for the holiday, and I just happened to be driving by when I heard the commotion. He turned back to Sarah, and now his expression was different, softer, almost emotional. Mitchell, I need to ask you something. Were you part of Operation Copper Mountain? Sarah's heart stopped. That was the code name for the mission, the one where everything went wrong. Yes, sir. Were you the one who pulled Lieutenant Commander Rourke to cover after he was hit? Tears filled Sarah's eyes. I tried, sir, but he didn't make it. Commander Barrett's face crumpled. James Rourke was my best friend. We went through Bud S together. When his team was hit, when the mission was classified, we were told. We were told there were no survivors. There were 3 of us, sir. We made it out. They told us everyone was KIA. They told us. The commander's voice broke. My God, you saved him. You gave him a chance. I'm sorry, sir. I'm so sorry I couldn't save him. Commander Barrett stepped forward and in front of the entire crowd pulled Sarah into a hug. You did everything you could. James would be grateful. I'm grateful. He stepped back, wiping his eyes. Mitchell, I've spent 3 years wondering what happened on that mission. The Navy won't tell me anything. But if you're here, if you survived, then at least I know someone fought like hell to bring my friend home. Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded. Commander Barrett turned to face the crowd, his voice strong again. This woman is a hero. She served in the most elite unit in the U.S. military. She fought in classified operations that you'll never read about. She saved lives, and you people have been treating her like garbage. The silence was deafening. Tom Henderson, the commander said, locking eyes with Tom. You served honorably in Desert Storm. I respect that, but you owe this woman an apology. Tom looked like he'd been punched. I didn't know. That's right, you didn't know. But instead of giving her the benefit of the doubt, you assumed she was lying. You led a campaign to discredit her. You made her life hell. Tom's face went pale. Women can't, I didn't think. Women can't what? Serve, fight, be as tough as men. Commander Barrett shook his head. Mitchell probably saw more combat in one deployment than you saw in your entire career. No disrespect to your service, but you need to check your assumptions. He addressed the whole crowd now. All of you need to understand something. The military is changing. Women are serving in combat roles, and some of them are damn good at it. Sarah Mitchell is proof of that. She earned her place through blood, sweat, and tears. She deserves your respect, not your judgment. Betty stepped forward, tears on her face. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have supported you. Others echoed her apology. Not everyone. Some people were too stubborn or too embarrassed, but enough that Sarah felt the tide turning. Marcus pushed through the crowd and stood next to Sarah. I told you she was for real. Commander Barrett smiled at the young man. You believed her. Yes, sir. She helped my family when she didn't have to. That's all I needed to know. The commander nodded approvingly. Then he turned back to Sarah. Mitchell, walk with me. They moved away from the crowd, finding a quiet spot under a large oak tree. Commander Barrett studied her carefully. How are you really doing? He asked. Sarah took a shaky breath. Honestly, sir, I've been better. I can imagine. Classified service is hard enough without the world thinking you're a liar. I knew it would be difficult when I left the Navy, but I didn't expect this. Why did you leave, if you don't mind me asking? Sarah looked at the ground. After the mission, after we lost the lieutenant commander and the others, I couldn't do it anymore. Every time we geared up. I saw their faces. Every mission felt like it might be the one where I didn't come home. I was making mistakes, hesitating. My team leader recommended I take a medical discharge, PTSD. I agreed. That takes courage too, knowing when to step back. Doesn't feel like courage, feels like failure. Commander Barrett put a hand on her shoulder. James Rourke was my best friend, but he was also one of the hardest men I've ever known. If he were here, do you know what he'd say to you? Sarah shook her head. He'd say thank you for trying to save him, for getting the others out, for serving with honor. The commander's voice was thick with emotion. He'd be proud of you, Mitchell, and he'd want you to be proud of yourself. Sarah felt tears rolling down her face. She'd been holding everything in for so long, the guilt, the grief, the anger. Now, finally, it was pouring out. I miss them, she whispered. I miss my team. I know, but they wouldn't want you to stop living. They'd want you to find peace. I don't know if I can. You can. It takes time, but you can. Commander Barrett pulled out a business card and handed it to her. This is my personal number. You call me anytime, day or night. I mean that. You're not alone, Mitchell. You have brothers and sisters in the teams who know what you went through. Let us help you. Sarah took the card, her hands trembling. Thank you, sir. Call me Will. We're teammates, even if we never served together. The video of Commander Barrett's defense of Sarah went viral within hours. Someone in the crowd had filmed the whole thing and posted it online. By evening, it had millions of views. The response was overwhelming. Veterans from across the country reached out to express their support. Women in the military shared their own stories of discrimination and disbelief. News outlets that had ignored or dismissed Sarah's story suddenly wanted interviews. But more important than the national attention was what happened in Riverside itself. Tom Henderson came to Sarah's house the next morning. He stood on her porch, hat in his hands, looking like a man who'd been up all night. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. A real one, not the half-hearted thing I said yesterday. I was wrong. I let my pride and my assumptions get in the way of treating you with basic decency. Sarah studied him from her doorway. She could see the genuine remorse in his eyes. I thought I was defending the memory of real SEALs, Tom continued. But I was just being a stubborn old fool. I'm sorry, Sarah, truly sorry. Thank you, Sarah said quietly. I appreciate that. The Veterans Club is meeting this afternoon. We'd like you to come, as our guest of honor. Sarah hesitated. Tom, I'm not looking for special treatment. It's not special treatment. It's what you deserved from the beginning. Please, let us make this right. That afternoon, Sarah walked into the Veterans Center wearing her dress uniform. The room erupted in applause. Every veteran in Riverside was there, standing, clapping, some with tears in their eyes. Tom approached with a plaque. Sarah Mitchell, on behalf of the Riverside Veterans Club, we'd like to present you with this in recognition of your exceptional service to our country. We're honored to count you among our members. Sarah accepted the plaque, her throat tight with emotion. Thank you. This means more than you know. An older woman, the one whose husband had died in Afghanistan, came forward. I owe you an apology, too. I said terrible things. I let my grief make me cruel. I'm sorry. I understand, Sarah said. Grief makes us all do things we regret. My husband would have respected you. He always said the best operators were the ones who didn't brag about it. You never wanted attention. You just wanted peace. That's the mark of a real warrior. Over the next few weeks, Riverside transformed from a place of hostility to a place of healing. Betty gave Sarah free coffee for a month as an apology. The grocery store manager featured her photo on the local heroes wall. Marcus started a fundraiser to help with her house repairs, and the community responded generously. But the most meaningful change was personal. Commander Barrett became a regular presence in Sarah's life, calling to check in, sharing stories about Lieutenant Commander Rourke, helping her process the trauma she'd been carrying. Through the commander, Sarah reconnected with the two other survivors from her team. They'd been scattered across the country, all struggling in their own ways. Together, they started a support group for veterans of classified operations, people who couldn't talk about their service but needed somewhere to heal. Dr. Oakes continued to work with Sarah, helping her develop coping strategies for the PTSD. The nightmares didn't disappear, but they became less frequent. The guilt began to ease. 3 months after the Memorial Day confrontation, Sarah received a letter from the Navy. It was brief and bureaucratic, informing her that certain aspects of her service record had been declassified. Not the mission details, those would remain secret, but the fact of her SEAL qualification and basic service history. Attached was a second letter, this one from the Navy's Public Affairs Office. They wanted to know if she'd be interested in speaking to new recruits, particularly women considering careers in special operations. They needed role models, the letter said. People who'd walked the path and could show others it was possible. Sarah called Commander Barrett. "Did you have something to do with this?" "I may have made a few calls," he admitted. "But the Navy wouldn't do it if they didn't think it was the right move. You're good for recruitment, Mitchell. You show that the teams are evolving." "I don't know if I'm ready to be a role model." "You don't have to decide right away, but think about it. Those young women need to see that someone like you exists, someone who made it through hell and came out the other side." Sarah did think about it. For days, she wrestled with the decision. Finally, she called the Navy and agreed to speak at a recruiting event. The event was held at a high school in Norfolk. About 300 students attended, mostly juniors and seniors considering military careers. Sarah stood backstage, her hands sweating, wondering what she could possibly say that would matter. Then she walked on stage and saw their faces. Young women in the audience, looking at her with hope and curiosity. Young men who seemed genuinely interested in hearing her story. And she knew what to say. "My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm a Navy SEAL," she began. "For a long time, I couldn't say that publicly. My service was classified, and even after it became known, people didn't believe me. They called me a liar, a fraud. They said women couldn't do what I'd done." She paused, looking out at the audience. "I'm here to tell you that what people say doesn't define you. Your actions define you. Your courage defines you. Your willingness to push through pain and doubt and fear, that's what defines you." Sarah spoke for 20 minutes, telling them about Bud S training, about the importance of teamwork, about the reality of combat. She didn't shy away from the hard parts, the injuries, the losses, the mental toll. "If you choose this path, it will be the hardest thing you ever do," she said. "But it will also be the most rewarding, because you'll know deep in your soul that you gave everything for something bigger than yourself." After her speech, dozens of students lined up to talk to her. One young woman, probably 17, waited until everyone else had gone. "Miss Mitchell, I just wanted to thank you. I've been thinking about joining the Navy, but my dad says women aren't cut out for combat. Seeing you here, hearing your story, it makes me believe I can do it." Sarah smiled. "You can do it. It won't be easy, but neither is anything worth doing. Don't let anyone tell you what you're capable of. Only you get to decide that." The girl left with tears in her eyes and determination in her step. On her drive back to Riverside that evening, Sarah realized something had shifted inside her. The guilt and grief were still there, they always would be, but they didn't control her anymore. She'd found a new mission, helping others find their way, just as Commander Barrett had helped her. When she got home, she found a package on her porch. Inside was a shadow box containing her SEAL trident, mounted professionally with an engraved plaque that read, "In honor of your service and sacrifice, welcome home, warrior." There was no note, but Sarah knew it was from the Riverside Veterans Club. She hung it in her living room, right above the fireplace where she could see it every day. A reminder of what she'd accomplished. A symbol of the battles she'd fought and won, both overseas and at home. That night, for the first time in 3 years, Sarah slept without nightmares. The next morning, she went to Murphy's diner. Betty had her coffee ready before she even sat down. "Morning, Sarah, the usual." "Yes, please." Tom Henderson waved from his usual spot at the counter. "Morning, Mitchell. You coming to the Veterans Center on Saturday? We're organizing a care package drive for deployed troops." "I'll be there," Sarah said. As she sipped her coffee and watched the morning sun stream through the diner windows, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time.